So let me introduce first of all us. This is my colleague Anna-Maria Bergrath. She's working in the procurement from Vorwerk as a lawyer. And my name is Thüsing. I'm head of risk process and invest within Vorwerk. And we want to show you a little bit on the very practical side how we cope with supply chain risk management and how we put new suppliers into our range and really guarantee that we have them really up to the notch and in a first state. First of all, very short introduction about Vorwerk. Hopefully most of you know our products we are having in our assortment, but a little bit for the brief history. Company is over 140 years old and it's still family-owned business. We started as a Barmer Teppichfabrik carpet manufacturer. And as a carpet manufacturer, we soon manufactured also the machines we're doing. We did metal parts and we also did motors. Those motors in the end of the 1920s, had a little problem. They were for gramophones. You may know these very old record players. And these old record players in the end of the 20s, they had declining sales because the radio was invented. So what to do with all this production capacity for motors? There was an engineer within Vorwerk and had a great idea. He put a propeller in the front and a bag in the back. And then we invented the first vacuum cleaner. But then we had a problem again because no one would really buy that one in the shops because nobody knew what this interesting device is. And then somebody from the family, Vorwerk, came from the United States and he brought a very nice concept to the company and said they walk from door to door, and from door to door you have the chance to approach the customer to tell them what is the sense of this unique thing. And then we started to be a direct selling company, what we are still by today. So within several years, business was increasing. 1953, the 1 millionth vacuum cleaner had been made. We had also founded a bank to it, so customers were easier to finance the products they are buying from us. And different changes, different things. And the next real step I want to come in here is 1971. We had the invention of the Thermomix, and that was a great success story with a production site in France. Several steps in between, but then I would say we have the next steps really remarkable is 2014, the latest generation, the newest generation from the Thermomix with a guided cooking function. So you never need any more cooking book. You don't need to go in real paper. You have a guided cooking function. Even I'm now able to do several things and my wife doesn't complain too much, even though she's far better than me, no doubt. Okay. Several steps in between. The new Thermomix TM6 had been launched with a bigger display. We had the next year coming in 2024. We had the new Cobalt vacuum cleaner range with a completely battery-operated vacuum cleaner. You can do wet floor cleaning, you can dry floor, and you can do it really without any cable, and you are able to do your whole flat or almost half house of it. Depends on the size, of course, but it's very energy efficient. Latest generation is TM7 since last year with a very huge display. It's really like a size from a tablet computer, and that is basically what we're having in here in the history. The business by today, 2024, 3.2 billion euro. Most of it is 1.7 billion euro coming from the Thermomix, almost 800 million euro from the Cobalt vacuum cleaner, and the AKF Bank is doing another 645 million. So in here, last glance on the products we are doing in here, and we are doing them in those three locations. Wuppertal is lead location and also production site for motors and vacuum cleaners. We're doing a lot of handheld products in Shanghai, China, and the Thermomix is produced 100% in France, in Cloire. Sur-le-Loire is 100 kilometers southeast or southwest of Paris, in the middle of, to be honest, nowhere. Coming to the point of, so you have only the chance to work for Vorwerk in that area because there's nothing you can do with instead of, basically. So that's very, very friendly for our company. But coming to the topic of today, and don't go too much into the history, the changing world. What kind of changes did we have? We had in the last 5 years, the increase of geopolitical risk, 300%. Insolvencies, about 250%, and I would say if you ask the same question within half a year, it will tell you a lot more, and it maybe will over exceed the regulatory requirements. Cybersecurity, a point we also hardly need to learn. 2 years ago, breaches about 600%. Some of our suppliers had been affected, unfortunately, but managed quite well. Regulatory requirements, where Anna will also tell a lot after my presentation about the principles we are doing in here and the legal requirements. The VUCA world is out. We now call it BANI. We say it's brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible. That would mean you cannot expect anything anymore. Just expect what you wake up and you will see what happens on the day, and you had some surprises in the positive and unfortunately also in the negative way. Within procurement, we are very sensitive on those issues, definitely, because if you see the products I just displayed here, there's a vacuum cleaner, there's a Thermomix, there's several attachments, and that's it. So it's not like you have 150 products in your assortment. If one of those products doesn't work out, and if we have an interruption in the production process, we are in a very, very deep trouble. That would mean we have within procurement all these things in order to cope with those possibilities of today. But for today, I would say now let's focus on the things we're having in here. How are we doing this? We are having a dedicated concept for supplier onboarding. The short overview is on the next slide, and you can see what we're doing here. We're starting with a first contact questionnaire. We have all those monitoring tools. We have possibly an initial audit. I'll come to the points in here later. Beside the initial audit is for us really an optional thing. So if we are in between of the process of a supplier onboarding, I'm not 100% sure whether we are really wanting to do business with them, we take the audit from the automotive industry, VDA 6.3, but we don't do it as a process audit. We, let's say, change the way of the audit into an initial audit, because there is no real process. The supplier is new to us and there's no production for us at the moment. So we do it as a kind of initial audit. This kind of initial audit then gives another top or down decision maker and helps us to get into those, let's say, decision flow. Starting with the first contact questionnaire on whatever way a new possible supplier has been brought to us, and we are still thinking, should we do business with him or shouldn't we? So there's a questionnaire within a database we are having, so we are able to, let's say, store those questionnaires. We are able to get informations out of it. So after 5 years and the new category manager asks himself, did we ever contact a company? He can get those data automatically out of that system and can also, let's say, see what possible supplier is really a supplier which can help us for the business what we are wanting in the current situation. So general information about where are they located, where's the production, how the standards they are certified to, what is they're doing in ESG, and all these things, contact partners, turnovers, the rough things you all know. Once the category manager and the supplier development engineer together has evaluated this questionnaire, and once they had, let's say, decided that's a supplier for us or not, we are going into the next step. We are already putting the monitoring tools and everything really sharp in place. We even, let's say, put the supplier into our SAP system, because we need the ERP number as the unique number connecting all the systems and all the information, which in the end come into our central risk monitoring platform. Sanctions list screening is running a little bit aside. It's connected directly to the SAP, but of course mandatory in the world of today. How are these tools working in here, and what are we doing? First of all, The latest thing 2 years ago, what we have introduced to our range is the cyber resilience testing. Cyber resilience was 2 years ago. Within investment purchasing, I can tell we had more troubles with cyber rates than with insolvency. So we decided we definitely need a tool which have a very deep eye onto those information. So on no matter way, we are checking the suppliers for file sharing, for open ports and DNS records, whatever things are measured here. We get a number, something between 250 and 940, whomever invented that. And we, of course, recalculate that into our central risk platform in order to get a, let's say, clear view about the cyber resilience of a possible supplier. The next is ESG monitoring. Some from you will know the slides of it in here. We are seeing how is the industry risk, how is the country risk. We will decide whether the supplier needs, according to the German Due Diligence Act or the coming CSDDD, whether they need a questionnaire or whether we don't need a questionnaire. However, they're into the monitoring and we have all our suppliers on that platform and can monitor them. If something really happens or we are unsure, we still have the chance with a certified audit company in order to execute an ethical audit everywhere in the world within 48 hours if something really happens in the supply chain, what can hinders our business. The next slide is something what will be known to some of you in the audience as well. It's the financial rating tool we are having in here. So we get the financial overview about all deep and wide information of our suppliers and have the chance to get the whole picture of it. Of course, this whole picture has one thing we still need to add informations on. The picture relies, of course, mostly on balance sheets. And balance sheets, as we know, are sometimes, of course, not up to date. Not everybody, let's say, brings them out and publish them right after they had been made. It takes time, and the picture might be not the picture of today. It might be something which is a little bit older, even though the information is really wide and good. So we see the next slide in here. So we have we call it cash flow risk. It's the so-called debtor risk assessment. It's not a real big information, of course. It's just one digit between 0 and 10, and it tells you from 0 insolvency to 10 the perfect financial situation, how good is the supplier, and of course how is the current status and also the recent development out of that. So bringing all these lovely tools together, we have the full picture in here. The full picture in here will tell you, first of all the financial data into it. We have the cash flow data in it. We have ESG. Of course, we are adding those information with the central risk platform, which gets from World Bank, from UN, from wherever the information, and also from, let's say, the agile search on the internet, those informations. My most famous example how good this platform can work, it was a supplier in northern Germany, and they had a fire in the middle of the night, somehow 1 o'clock in the night, and a local newspaper reported about that somehow in the morning, 7:30 or whatever, when I reminded correctly. And that newspaper was not only published in paper, it was of course also published in the internet. Somehow in the afternoon, this software found this report and said with the buzzwords fire, name of supplier, whatever it is, found that information and then found it out to be relevant, brought it to a team, which then there's human people sitting there and really deciding, is that something, is it a hoax or is it something really relevant information? And those people decided it's relevant for Vorwerk, and at 7:30 in the evening, the category manager got the information, there's a fire at the supplier, you better call him tomorrow and ask whether somebody is really hurt, and how about the production facilities? And then he can ask if not the complete production has been burned down. Come on, it would be nice to produce for Vorwerk instead of others, right? The official information from the supplier, they got only 3 weeks later because they had other things to do than type letters and inform your customers about there's a fire and we had a problem. So it really gives you an absolute advantage about what we are doing. On this platform, not only all the information from the system I just explained go together, also the information from SAP about how is the in-time delivery from our suppliers. Our quality system is also connected, so the qualification A, B, C supplier, whatever, is also going into this point. And we have also a connection to further information, further data about how many contracts we're having. Is the situation complete? Is the picture really up to the state? So we are really connecting and bringing all the information relevant for this thing into this device. And last to explain, we have also included a second tier monitoring. We are inviting our suppliers onto this platform, and they can, let's say, use the tool free of charge. That is the advantage for them, and key in their major suppliers for our assortment. And our advantage, of course, is then we get the information from the second tiers, and his advantage is he doesn't need to pay anything, but he also has, let's say, a little tool, not the full picture, of course, but a little tool in order to use those information for his work. So, and now when I take a look on the counter, I'm right in time. I'm 15 seconds before, and hand over to my colleague Anna Maria, and she will explain a little thing about how we're doing the thing on the contractual side.
Okay, I would like to show you something about the implementation of regulations at Vorwerk. Our task as a legal department is to managing risk and strictly implementing the mandatory standards. The base for the contractual side is on the one hand the general legal basis. In Germany, we have the German civil codes. These are standard norms for the contract law in Germany. Then we have the German commercial code, and this is to corporate law and commercial law. And if we conclude contract with international suppliers, we have to use the international contract law. On the other hand, we have important EU regulations that we have to comply with. They concern specific areas, meaning they are only applicable in certain areas. For example, the carbon border adjustment mechanism is most important for the category packaging. Here you can see the development in recent years in legal and ESG. Since 2014, the number of regulations has changed significantly. There have been 16 new regulations till now. So the dynamics of the legal development, there are more complexer regulations and shorter legislative cycles. So often we have less than 2 years to conclude it in our contracts, and it's more work for us. And then there are many omnibus packages whereby regulations are subsequently amended or the application deadline is postponed. And we need to balance this with implementation in the company. Here's an example about the EU deforestation regulation. It's about to sell or import and export certain raw materials and products made from them in the EU if they can be proven to be deforestation-free and legally produced. The regulation came into force at June 2023, and the original date for the main obligations take effect on December 2023. In October 2024, the European Commission made a proposal for postponement. Then 2025 in September, there come media reports about postponement because of IT systems, about the due diligence report we have to do. So in December 2025, 4 weeks ago, the European Commission made an official announcement that the application will be postponed until December 30 in 2026. So we as Vorwerk included the regulation in September 2025 in our contracts, and now we are checking regularly if we had to do something more. Our implementation at Vorwerk. In 2040, we have 11 pages contracts, and now with the changes and more regulations, we are by 64 pages. Our typical risk areas are, on the one hand, the statutory requirements we have to comply with, so we have to regulate it, and these rules are not negotiable. And on the other hand, there are supplier-related risks we can regulate. So, for example, service descriptions or liability, provisions for delivery, or the price adjustment. And these supplier-related risks are also the most difficult to negotiate with the suppliers because there's a legal leeway here. Oh. Here you can see our contract management. We have a modular system. We have a procurement agreement. It's a framework agreement. And the other 6 contracts on the right side are like attachments. So the framework agreement is a regular contract, and the other 4 specific themes. The procurement agreement and the module compliance are the most important ones, and I will show you why. The procurement agreement are general provisions that define the framework of the business relationships. They are, for example, parties, subject, warranty, price and payment, industrial property rights, force majeure, law and jurisdiction. And the module compliance. These documents regulate matters that we must to pass on the supply chain, for example, the German Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz. And there are product design, substance legislation and restriction, social standards, and data privacy or trade secrets. Here you can see the other modules. These are about module logistic, about delivery and packaging, module ordering procedure, demand management, or for example push-pull, calls and forecasts, module furnishing regulations for items provided, and the quality assurance, it's about product quality and for example defects on the quality, and the module quality and emergency, it's about product recall and emergency plans. Emergency plans we need for our insurance, for example. Okay. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.